Welcome to the Pink Tax Podcast, a no-nonsense podcast for millennial women, building wealth and smashing the patriarchy, $1 at a time, with your hosts, Janine and Tara.
Hey Tara.
Hi Janine.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you feeling since we launched episode 1?
Pretty good. I think we have had some fantastic feedback and I can't believe we had over 100 downloads in under a week.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Thanks so much, you guys, for believing in us and for listening to our first episode and for all your feedback.
Yeah, so that is why we are actually recording this mini episode in between, I guess, full episodes. We wanted to touch on a couple of things around feedback we've gotten and also, I guess, share how we're feeling because it is so much work and so many technical issues around launching a podcast. So we, I guess, wanted to say thank you for being patient with us. We know it took a little bit of time to get our podcast up on all of the different mediums, including Apple and Spotify and Google. And if there are any mediums that we've missed that you're hoping we put the podcast on, definitely let us know. You can reach us always on any of our social channels, but you can also email pinktaxshow@gmail.com, and we are happy to answer listener questions on the podcast as well as address any feedback or take suggestions going forward.
Or just share any conversations you've had since our launch. I had an interesting one with someone who hadn't listened to the episode yet, but heard that we had a podcast on women and money and started diving in deep to actual stocks and talking about that kind of thing. And it was a dude. And even as I was chatting to him, I was feeling the imposter syndrome. It was so strange. And it's one of the first times that a fella has initiated a financial conversation with me. And it's something that we talked about in the last episode and that we're going to talk about in our next one, about how men and women speak differently about money. And I think that has a lot to do with how we're socialized. So it was interesting. It was an interesting experience.
For sure. I think we touched on this a couple times in season 1, but it does seem that women are socialized more to talk about money from what they're spending on, if they got a good deal, those types of things. Whereas men, I think, are socialized to talk more about investing, to talk about returns, to talk about how much wealth they have. Whereas I think for women, in a lot of situations, it would be seen as bragging.
Yeah. Well, and I felt as though I wasn't an authority on it, even though I've, studied this. And
yeah, you've done the research.
Yeah. So it was a really strange experience. It was a really strange experience, but I think it had to do with socialization. Otherwise, why would I have felt awkward about it? He certainly didn't.
Yeah, and he's probably not an expert on absolutely everything there is in finance or in investing either, because how can you be? There's so much to know. There's so many stocks and bonds and ETFs to, be watching. So there's no way that anyone is going to know everything.
Yeah, and he was pretty vulnerable about it, and just openly talking about it, and I definitely had more nervousness around it than he did. So it was just interesting.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. Another bit of feedback we had was to maybe speak on what the pink tax is.
Yeah, maybe we should have started with that in episode 1, but we got too excited around just sharing the financial knowledge and the resources that we've used to help us kind of get our money house in order. But we definitely want to take a minute here in this short episode to talk about what the pink tax actually is. So Tara, do you want to take it away in terms of what the pink tax is defined by?
Yeah, so the pink tax is a term to explain the higher prices that women pay for similar products, or just the additional items that we have to purchase and how they're priced in terms to a similar product that would just be for men. So it's just the difference there.
Yeah, so an example would be men's and women's deodorant or toothbrushes or razors. Yeah. If you go to the grocery store or the pharmacy or whatever, and you look at comparing those prices on I guess, like maybe a per gram basis. Because I think sometimes men's things are bigger. But even with that being said, typically a woman's product is going to be more expensive.
Yeah. So there was an interesting study in 2016 by Parse where they found on average women pay 43% more than men for toiletries. And they actually break it down like deodorant, toothpaste, like those kind of things, which is super neat. And we can post a link to that. But 43% more.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think, like, one other thing that costs women so much, I mean, not just one other thing, there's many other things, but tampons and menstrual products, first of all, have GST charged on them, which is illegal in my head. So
or should be illegal.
It should be illegal.
Yeah.
So whoever's running, because I know the election's coming up, whoever's running for office in terms of becoming prime minister, I think someone should, run on that platform of, making it so, first of all, tampons aren't so bloody expensive. It's like $10 for a small box every month.
Yeah. No,
and then you pay GST on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not looked at as a necessity.
Yeah, it's looked at as a luxury good. Like, you tell me, ladies, how many times has your period been a luxury?
Yeah, it would be nice to see pricing of tampons. And as a mom, diapers in any shape or form looked at as not a luxury, but as a necessity.
Well, yeah, you're not going to not diaper your child.
There's some very poor people
For
that
sure.
can't afford to, so they do not.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess that probably sounded a little bit ignorant, but what I meant by that is of course you're going to, if you have the means, you're going to pay for those things.
Yeah, you need
just to. Like, period products, menstrual products, you're going to purchase those things as well. We should totally do an episode on periods.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm
going to write that down. So I guess we've talked a little bit about what the pink tax is. And if you have not, I guess, heard about it before, it is something to start paying attention to. And, trying to demand more, I think, from companies, but also from governments. I know there was some talk in BC recently around schools having to actually provide tampons for female washrooms. And there was some crazy uproar about that, which I thought was ridiculous and it was mainly men, because they were like, why parents should be paying for that stuff? Why should the government have to pay for that? But I guess to that point, you don't bring your own toilet paper when you're going to the bathroom. So tampons should be available. And the number of times where I've gotten my period when I wasn't expecting it or what have you, and been like, oh shit, I don't have a tampon. For all bathrooms to just have a supply, I think is the way we should be kind of demanding things go for females.
Especially schools and employers. All employers should provide that.
100%. None of this put in 25 cents into that shitty metal coin machine that doesn't give you a tampon or gives you that one with the terrible wooden applicator.
Yeah. Wooden. I think it's cardboard.
Whatever. Oh God, I hope it's not wooden. It's totally cardboard.
Yeah, the next thing that the pink tax kind of bleeds into,
lots of period jokes today,
is the wage gap. So women are statistically paid less in Canada than the other gender, on average about 75 cents on the dollar. There was a really cool new study that was just done where they found that PhDs have finally reached parity.
Yay!
But if you're not a PhD, you're probably still being paid significantly less. You have to look in your industry, that kind of thing.
And so when the PhDs reached pay equity or pay parity, is that in academia and teaching, or is that them being out in the field in the private sector? Do you know if they gave any more detail around that? Because I think that could be interesting.
I think they probably have those details in the article in the paper, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. I do remember something interesting where they saw the gap from a man who has a master's degree to a man who has a PhD when they go out into the workforce, what they're paid. That jump is significantly less than the jump for a lady with a master's degree to the PhD. So the gap is larger from master's to PhD in terms of pay, but I have a feeling, nobody quote me on this, I have a feeling it was just, a general feedback. It didn't just look at only academia positions. It was if you had gotten your PhD and are now in the workforce, what are you earning?
Yeah,
and are you
fair enough.
A man or a woman?
I think to make it so that everyone gets a PhD is not realistic. So, I mean, it's good. It's a good first step. Hopefully, other levels of education start to follow suit. And
yeah. The biggest gap is for apprenticeship and Red Seal. So I think that speaks to it too. You're making women work so much harder and receive so much more education than men to just have a smaller discrepancy in pay.
Well, and I think I've read around, women getting promoted and getting recognized for good work, and men are recognized and promoted based on what employers will think they can offer in the future, whereas for women, it's kind of what they have done in the past. So we're benchmarked against different things as well, and so that's probably why education does have to be so much higher, because in a sense, women have to prove themselves more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it speaks to that for sure. What were some interesting conversations that you had after we launched?
We got a lot of positive feedback from the people that I shared and forced to listen to the podcast. So thanks to everyone that did that.
How did you force people to listen?
I just bugged them until they said they listened to it. I just text people too much.
Okay, you didn't kidnap anybody and put headphones on them or anything like that?
Not yet,
okay,
but there's
cool.
a couple of people on my list that haven't listened to the podcast. So I will find you. Please don't take that as a threat, but also it's a threat.
Did you have any surprising conversations?
No, I don't think so. I think people were just excited for us. I know, I'll just say it, there was a few sound quality issues in our first episode, and we realized that, so please be patient with us. Episodes did get easier to record, and they also got easier to edit as the season went on, so they will continue to get better, and we're still learning over here. This is our first podcast, but we're also looking, I'll put maybe a little bit of a call out for people that are interested in being interviewed by us. Season 2, I think we're going to bring some other voices into the podcast, and so we have a list started, but if you know anyone, or maybe you are a financial guru, or even someone with just an interesting financial story, we would love for you to shoot us some information on, again, any of our social media channels or our email address, pinktaxshow@gmail.com. And I'll also just say that if you get on our newsletter list, we are starting to share some subscriber-only exclusive content in our newsletters, so definitely make sure you do that. And otherwise, I think we're just excited to talk about, how money affects women, and not only challenges that women go through, but there's obviously challenges financially for a lot of people in this day and age.
Yeah, and I mean, we're coming at from the perspective of that we are cis hetero women, but we know there's a wide variety of challenges that we haven't faced that other women face, and we'd love to hear those stories. If you feel like sharing yours, and give us permission to either share yours or speak to us. And if you want to be recorded, we'd definitely love to hear from you.
Absolutely. With that, I think we'll sign off for today. And we are excited for the next episode to drop this week. And we hope you enjoyed this little update from us.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
As always, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and leave a 5-star review. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to share your money story using the hashtag FemFinances.